Hi everyone, welcome to another Wellness Wednesday. My name is Mary Grimm. I am one of 4 wellness professionals at ECC, and I'm so glad that you're joining me today. Today's topic is going to be related to the impact of COVID-19. Now, before you turn off the video, I know, we are bombarded with information about COVID-19, whether it's new cases, protective equipment we're supposed to be wearing, social distancing, how this state's doing it, that state's doing it, and all of that is overwhelming. And it's just adding to what is really going on underneath the surface with you. The truth is, we don't often talk about COVID-19 and the impact it's having on us individually. There's so much uncertainty related to COVID-19, and that's enough to elicit a lot of anxiety in someone. But I want to pose this question to you. Have you thought of COVID-19 as a trauma? Maybe you have. Maybe you're thinking, well, Mary, trauma is, that's if my life was in danger, an act of violence or a natural disaster. And while certainly those are associated with trauma involves an event where there is a threat. And the response to that threat is loss of power and helplessness, often leading to feelings of overwhelmed and being isolated. And so if that's something that you're experiencing, I would strongly encourage you to reach out to someone, because COVID-19 can be looked at as a collective trauma. It's a global threat. It's impacted our daily living, how we work, engage with other people. It's also taken significant tolls, and it's resulted in loss of life, loss in other areas, specifically jobs, finances, education, and it's forced people to be isolated, right, through social distancing. And it's created the sense of helplessness or hopelessness because of the uncertainty related to COVID-19. So it certainly can be viewed as a trauma. But even if it is a collective trauma that we're experiencing together with our nation, with our community, it's important to remember that trauma, grief, and loss associated with that, how that impacts someone is very individualized. Everyone is going to experience something different, and it's important that your experience, your story, is heard and validated because it's real and it matters. What's happening a lot now, and what I see a lot personally, is this air of confidence that, well, I'm fine, everything's okay, we're all in this together anyway, I'm gonna get through this. And while that's great, oftentimes that's not the truth. The truth is that underneath all of it, we're not fine. We are struggling, and there is a lot going on that maybe we're not ready to address, or we just haven't found that space or that person that we can share it with. And so I encourage you that if you are struggling with grief, loss, and trauma related to COVID-19, that you reach out. Wellness Services is here to be that space, that person that you can trust, and is there to listen and support you. But also friends, family members, spiritual mentors, people in the community that you can trust, I would highly encourage you to reach out to them as well. So the big question then is, okay, Mary, if this is trauma or grief that I am experiencing, how on earth do I move forward? Because there is so much uncertainty. Well, the good news is when it comes to trauma, you can remember this pretty easily, that we just want to flip everything that trauma caused in terms of how we're coping. So when we talk about loss of power and helplessness, we want to take back power and control within our own lives, specifically for our well-being. That is a huge piece in the journey of processing trauma, is taking back control. Also, we want to make sure we're getting connected, addressing that isolation piece, especially with COVID-19. I hear you when you say, well, social distancing, how am I supposed to connect? It is not impossible. You absolutely can, and that connection piece is going to be huge. So reaching out again to somebody that you can trust. Wellness Services contact info is below. So then the question is, well, if that's what we're supposed to do, again, how do I go forward? Because I don't know how to plan for a future where I don't know what's going to happen. And that's a real concern, because just in general, uncertainty about the future is enough to cause anxiety in anyone. So add COVID-19 onto that, and that can exacerbate the symptoms of anxiety or symptoms related to trauma. So There are a number of things that we can do. There are a number of coping strategies. You can skip ahead towards the end of the video, and I'm going to give you 2 coping strategies specifically that are going to address some of the physical symptoms associated with anxiety, trauma, grief, and loss. But first and foremost, we have to get vulnerable. We have to recognize that we're not always going to be okay. Everything is not fine. And you know what? It's okay. And you may have heard the term, it's okay not to be okay, and that's so true. But it's important that we recognize it and that we do something about it, that we process and we talk with someone that we can trust. So one great way to do that, besides getting connected with others, is to do this through narrative form. Now that can be written journal, it can be audio, visual, it could be through an art form. You can get creative, but start by getting intentional with your story, what it is that you're experiencing, what you're struggling with. And I specifically recommend writing it out if you can in terms of journaling, because that is going to give you a great way to not only process, but then visually be able to reflect. Journaling also gets ideas, thoughts, experiences, or struggles out of our head and the swirling thoughts of our mind and onto paper, something that we can take hold of and really reflect on and begin to process. When you do this in therapy, it can be called narrative therapy. There's also what's called a trauma narrative. So if you're more interested in that, please reach out to Wellness Services, because a wellness professional can help walk with you as you begin creating your own trauma narrative. Now, I mentioned coping strategies, which of course we're getting to, but I want to talk about and maybe even reiterate a little bit that coping strategies, they are beautiful, they're wonderful, they're necessary and part of the journey, but that's not all. Often what happens is we recognize that something's off, that we feel anxious, maybe we have this butterfly in our stomach, or we feel like we have all this energy we have to get out, so we go on a run, right? We do deep breathing, we do progressive muscle relaxation, put on our favorite song, start, scrolling through social media or TikTok, and not one of those is bad in and of itself, but if that's all we do is we feel anxious and then we cope, right? We do deep breathing, or we do progressive muscle relaxation. Those are great, but it's not addressing the in-between and the processing, the heavy stuff in the middle. That's the important things that we begin to dissect and pick apart, so we can start figuring out what's causing these symptoms and how we're going to move forward in a healthy way. So yes, coping is important, but the process and the connecting with someone that you can trust to really work through that's where you're going to do a lot of the work. But we have to have that mental and physical energy to be able to dedicate really diving deep into trauma work. So we have to get in the right headspace, and that can be through a couple of different things, through a variety of different things. But 2 things I really recommend to help get you more into the present moment, calm, relaxed, so you're in a better space to start addressing that, is through deep breathing and also a grounding exercise. So stay tuned. We're going to talk about those in just a second. Hi everyone. Okay, so now we're going to talk the 2 coping strategies, one being deep breathing and the other a grounding exercise. So for deep breathing, there are so many techniques you can utilize out there, so I encourage you to do your research, but there's going to be 3 that I'm talking about today. The first is called 4-7-8, which some of you may be familiar with. The other is box or square breathing. And then the third is just something I teach students. It's just a simplified way for beginners to really engage in deep breathing. So the first one, 4-7-8, you're going to inhale for 4, hold your breath for 7, exhale for 8. I know that sounds like a long time. Now, before we do our inhale, we need to get intentional. So a lot of times, go ahead and exhale, get all the air out before we begin can help you, and set an intention that you're going to do this slow and controlled, with the real focus being on controlling your exhale and the inhale, okay? So let's go ahead and begin. Get all that air out. When you're ready, inhale. Hold. Exhale. Very good. Now notice your body. How did that feel for you? Did you feel numbness or tingling? Are you more relaxed or calm now? Now what I'd like you to do is go ahead, pause this video, and try that type of breathing 3 more times to really see how your body responds to that. Okay, now the second one, square or box breathing, you're going to focus on creating a box or a square, linking up those 4 corners. So all you have to remember is 4. Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4. Okay, let's give that a try. Ready? And inhale, hold, exhale, hold. Very good. Okay, go ahead again, pause the video, and try this 3 or so times to really see how your body responds. Okay, the last type of a deep breathing exercise I'm going to talk about is something I teach students all the time in session, and that is a simplified version of 4-7-8. So if you're new to deep breathing, when I ask students, go ahead, take a deep breath for me, this is often what happens. And while that may be a cleansing breath, like before you give a class presentation or you go into a job interview, I would argue that that's not going to get us the results that we're looking for. That can turn into hyperventilating or just holding your breath, which we don't want. So let's start for 3 seconds, because that can seem like a long time to some people. So go ahead, you're going to inhale for 3, hold for 3, and then whatever your inhale was, your exhale should be double that length. So we're inhaling for 3, we'll exhale for 6. All right, ready? Let's begin. Inhale, hold, exhale. Very good. Again, go ahead, pause, try that out, and see which type of exercise works best for you. Again, there's so many out there, so please do your research, but these are 3 great ways for you to go ahead and get started trying out deep breathing. Remember, practice when you're calm so you're more likely to utilize them when you really need them. Okay, the final coping strategy is a grounding exercise, and that just means we want to get focused in the present moment or grounded to the moment. So we're getting out of the past, out of the future, things we can't change, can't predict or control, and we're coming back to the moment. So I like to call this exercise 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's really simple to remember because we're just activating our 5 senses. So you're going to name 5 things you can see, 4 things that you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. Now you can do this in any order, that's totally fine. This is just easier for me to remember. So 5 things I can see: blue sky, flowers that are pink, white pillow, tan house, see, black grill cover. 4 things that I can touch: cushion, bracelet, hair, the fabric of my dress. 3 things I can hear: birds, an air conditioning unit, and trees rustling. Okay, 2 things I can smell: shampoo and perfume. 1 thing I can taste: I have some water with raspberries in it from my neighbor. So nice of him. Raspberries, very tart. Okay, now that was so easy. You can do it in your head or out loud if you wanted to, just like I did, whatever works best for you. But the cool thing is you can expand upon this, so you don't just have to name 5, you can go beyond that. And if you really want to get intentional, take 1 object and really describe it as objectively as possible to further ground yourself in the present moment. Okay, thanks so much. I hope that you can take something from this and utilize it when you need it. All right, everyone, that's all I have for you this week. Again, thanks so much for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss a video. New videos are out every Wednesday. See you later.